All right, so some of these problems have unnecessary information, and this is one of them, okay? It says a vase is in the shape of a right cylinder with both radius and height equal to 2x units. If V equals 8x cubed times pi represents the volume of the cylinder in cubic units, which represents the equation when solved for x. So basically, what are we doing here? What are we solving for? We're solving for x. So do you need any of this right here? No, so just go ahead and mark that out. You don't need any of it. So all we're doing is we're taking this equation and we're solving for x. So looking at that equation before you even start solving, the x has a power of 3, right? How do you get rid of a cube? You take the cube root. So look at your choices. You're going to have to take the cube root sometime to get x by itself. There are 2 choices that do not have a cube root. Which ones do not have a cube root? B and D. So what can we do with those? We can cross them out. All right, now is this the same thing as this? Right? All I'm saying is I just split them up. 8 times x cubed times pi. So if I'm trying to get x cubed by itself, what 2 things do I need to get rid of? 8 and the pi. So let's divide by 8 pi on both sides. My 8's go away, my pi's go away. So I'm left with v over 8 pi equals x cubed. Well, we just said to get rid of a cube, we take the cube root, right? So, A or C? A. 35. Consider the systems of equations. So when you have a systems of equations, you are looking for when those 2 lines, what? Where they intersect or where they meet, okay? So, in your calculator, let's graph 4x squared minus 1 in the first one. The first 4x squared minus 1 in the first in y1. And then in y2, let's graph the second one. So negative 8x plus 11. And then hit graph to look at your lines. All right, so right there, how many intersections do you actually see? You only see 1. But what do you notice the problem says? It says which 2. So one of those we can't see. So what is the intersection of where it's crossing? Looking at your choices, the intersection's about right here. So everything's going to be what? All the points are got to be positive. So the only one that has all points positive is D and E. Well, if it was E, it would be really high up, right? So it has to be D. All right, now the other one, if you think about it, this parabola keeps going like this. And this line keeps going like this. So it's going to be crossing on the left side of the graph or the right side of the graph? The left side, okay? So what value has to be negative if we're on the left? X. So you got A or B. Well, if it was negative 3 for the Y value, you would be able to see it. So it has to be A. Hit second graph now. Highlight negative 3 on your X. What does it say both of your Y's are?
35.
35. So you can also do it this way. You have to look at your table. Whenever your y values are the same, that's your solution. So -3, 35. Go down to our other choice we picked, which was 1, 3. When you go to 1, what are your two y values? 3. If you wanted to solve this, what would you do with those two equations? If you're trying to find where they meet. Set them equal to each other, right? When you're solving an equation, everything has to be on how many sides? One side. What kind of function is that? Quadratic, so you could use the big X or quadratic formula. Yep, you're going to get the same answers though. So what is the best option here? Okay, quadratic formula, but we can do the big X if, does 4 go into all those numbers? So we have an x squared minus 2x, is it a plus 8? It's plus 8, sorry, plus 8. Plus 2x and minus 3. Now we could do the big X with that one real quick. What multiplies to -3 and adds to 2? 3 and -1, right? But those are not my solutions. Those are my what? Polynomials. So I have x plus 3 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. What's the solution for the first one? X equals -3, and this one is x equals 1. So you know you got your two x values from that. How do you get your y values? When you put in an x, you get out a y. So you can just take those values and plug it into either equation. You plug in -3. You plug in 1, you're going to get 24 plus 11 is 35. And then -8, that should say 11. -8 plus 11 is 3. So there are two solutions we have already picked. So any of those ways. If I were you, I would graph it though. Look where they cross. Okay. All right. Problems like 36. It says a librarian randomly surveys 140 students in a school to determine if students at the school are satisfied with the current opening hours of the library. The survey result reveals that 60% of the students are satisfied. The librarian then runs a simulation and analyzes the results that arise from multiple simulated samples of 140 students. All right, so if yesterday we added up in another class all those frequencies, they don't come out to equal 140. I think it was like 178 maybe. Okay? So, that's why it says a sample proportion. You see the word sample proportion? All right, what does the word sample mean? Right, you're taking something smaller. All right, so the actual question says, which is the best interpretation? All right, when it says which is the best or which is the most, all of the answers are what? They are all right. But there is one that is better than the other. Okay? Look at all these proportions, or all these percents, decimals. To the right, they all have a frequency. So at some point in time, somebody's pretty satisfied about the library's hours. Okay? So look at your choices. Which one is the only one that covers that entire chart? A, because it says approximately 48 to 74%. Now B is also right. From 60% to 74%, are people satisfied? They still got a frequency, so yeah. At exactly 60%, people are pretty satisfied. 19 of them are. And at 62%, 24 of them are. So all of them are right, but the best option would show and tell us that the entire percentage is a fan. So that would be A. All right, 37. What kind of multiplication we do here? There's equal sign in the middle, so we cross multiply. All right, 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times negative 4 is equals 4 times x. 4 times negative 2. Negative 8. All right, now we have to get everything on one side, okay? You want to move right to left or left to right?
Right to left. That side's got the x squared.
Because that side's got the x squared. You can go left to right, but your x squared is going to become negative. So let's move right to left. So minus 4x plus 8. So we are left with 2x squared minus 4x. And then what happens to our 8s? 8 cancel, right? So we don't even need to put that. All right. Big X. What goes in the bottom? Negative 4. What goes in the top?
I know, 2.
0 is, in the top is A times C, but what value is missing? C. So if C is ever missing, it's always going to be 0, right? All right, so the only thing that adds to negative 4 and multiplies to 0 is negative 4 and 0. Now, normally we would be done here. But we have an A value that is not 1. So what do we have to do with both negative 4 and 0? Divide by 2. Well, 0 just stays 0. And negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2. We have two polynomials, x minus 2, and then, of course, just x equals 0. Look at your choices. Do you even have a 2 on there? No, so the answer has to be only what? Only 0. If we needed to, how would we check ourselves? Put it back in. Yep, exactly. All right, 38. Person records the mode of transportation, train or car, used to get to work and whether or not the person was in bed by 10 p.m. Last month, the person only used a car to travel to work and was in bed by 10 p.m. 25% of the time. 25 is an important part here. The person plans to use a train to travel to work for the next 60 work days. On how many of the next 60 work days would the person go to bed by 10 p.m. to indicate that this event is independent? If something is independent, what does that mean? It's on its own, right? All right, so before, when this person was traveling in a car, okay, he or whoever was in bed 25% of the time, okay? 25% of the time. Well, now we're just swapping to train for 60 days. So how can I find out how many days he's going to be in bed by 10 p.m.? How many days are we going to be riding this train? 60. Multiply it by what? 0.25. We're trying to figure out what 25% of 60 is. So 25% of those days, we're getting in bed by 10. How many days is that? 15 days. Now, what if it said 50% of the time we was in bed by 10? Divided by 0.5, and it would be 30. What if it said 75% of the time we would multiply by 0.75 and get 45 days? Yes, exactly. Good. All right, 39. 39 is one of those problems where you do not need all this. The expression 120 times 1/2 to the power of t divided by 5,730 represents a certain radioactive substance after 2 years. Oh, that literally has nothing to do. Okay, so we just mark this out. We're trying to figure out which one's true. Okay. When we are decaying, okay, we're going where?
Down.
We're going down. Okay. So, what do you notice about all of the problems? They all have the word decay in it, and they all have the word equivalent. Yes. Look at all these functions. They're all what? They're all the same. What is the only thing that's different in all of these choices? The percent, right? We are looking for a percent where we are decaying. 99.9%. You think you're decaying at 99.9%? That's pretty close to what? Pretty close to 100, so I don't think we're decaying there. All right. What about 1%? Maybe? What about 0.9999%? No. What about 0.01? We're looking for our smallest percentage here. because we're decaying. So which one of those out of A, B, C, or D has the smallest percentage?
D.
D. Now, if it said which one has a growth rate, we're looking for the highest percentage, so it would be A, right? All right, 40. Consider the statements of probabilities of events S and R. The probability of event S occurring is 0.2. The probability that S and R are occurring together is 0.6. Which one tells us that S and R are independent? Well, what does it mean to be independent? By itself. Out of those 2 bullet points, which one is telling us that something is independent? The first one or the second one? The first one, because it just has one event. On your choices, which one is the only choice that tells you that S is occurring 0.2?
D.
Not D. D says R is occurring 0.2.
C. Oh, B.
B. S is occurring 0.2. Do you even need this second bullet point? We're looking for stuff that's independent, and being together is not being independent, right? So you're just looking for something is independent. All right, 41. A country uses the function m of t equals 3.45 times 1.56 to the t power to estimate the inflation. What's the word inflation mean? To go up. The inflation rate on a gallon of milk. What does 1.56 represent? So, we know it's a growth rate because it says inflation, okay? This is a growth rate. Write this part down. What do you notice is already in that equation? What number? And the generic equation, what number's already there? 1, right? So, we are looking for just the rate of what it grew by. Rates are done in what? Percent. Well, look at your choices. A and B are in, they're in dollars. Well, we know a rate's not in dollars, so we don't even need those. Those make no sense. Now, C and D, they both make sense. But you have to recognize that we are just looking for the R value. We're not looking for the entire thing. We're just looking for the R. So if we're just looking for the R, 56% or 156%? 56%. Yes. Now, if it just said the rate, it'd be 156. But it says the inflation rate. Okay? What if it said the decreased rate? Instead of it saying 1 plus R, it's going to say 1 minus R. Yep. All right. 42. The result of a survey shows that all randomly selected residents in the town, 56% use social networking site 1, 36 use site 2, and 24 use both. If a resident in the town uses social networking site 1, what is the probability they also use social networking site 2? Okay. Overall, we're trying to figure out that they use social networking site 2, basically. What is the percentage that they're using both? 24%. That's my total. That's what they're dealing with. What is the percentage that they're only using social networking site 1? What's it say? Read. Social networking site 1. What percentage? Huh? 56. Why am I dividing? Point what?
42.86.
All right. Does that look like one of your choices? You have to change that decimal to a percent. So the answer would be A. Now, what if it was the other way around and instead it asked us for social networking site 2? Instead of 56, it would say 36. Yeah, good. All right, 43. You know how much of that you need? None of it. Because look, it says which is the equation when solved for x. So we take the equation v equals 215 plus x divided by p plus 1. What is p plus 1 doing with 215 plus x right now? Huh? Dividing. So the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So we're multiplying by p plus 1 on one side or both sides? Both sides. What happens if the p plus 1's on the right side? Got one on the top and one on the bottom, so they cancel, right? So now we have v times p plus 1 equals 215 plus x. Trying to get x by itself, so what do I have to do to 215? Add it or subtract it? Subtract it. So the only correct answer it could be is C. Okay. On number 44, first we have to know what this means and what this means. All right, so f of 6 equals negative 2 is the same thing as me saying x equals 6 and y equals negative 2. All right, when f of x is evenly divisible by x plus 6, that means that I do not have a remainder. Okay. So, look at your choices. So in order for me to have x plus 6, x would need to be 6. And when it says x plus 6, it would say x equals negative 6. All right. Well, when we have x equals 6, we have a remainder of negative 2. So A cannot be it. When it says we are dividing f of x by x plus 6, or x minus 6, which comes from here, we get negative 2. So yes, that is correct. All right, the remainder when we say dividing x plus 6 is negative 2. If you read right here, it says f of x is evenly divisible by x plus 6. That means we do not have a remainder. All right, and D and E. So the value of x equals negative 6 is a 0 of f of x. Well, that's wrong because when we have a negative, this is right because x equals -6. Well, this comes from x plus 6 right here. Well, it says it's evenly divisible, so that means yes, it is a 0. Now, E is the one that is wrong because when we have a value of x equals 6, we have a remainder of -2, so no, that is not correct. All right, 45. These have got to be gimmes. So it says which one is best be studied as an experiment and not an observational study. So if you read all of your choices, remember an experiment is something we're actually using. We're trying different things. So the only one that's actually using something is A, and they're using medicine. All right, 46. If you notice that these two equations are set equal to each other, okay? So we are basically finding the solution to the equation, which is where they are going to intersect. So here we're going to graph both functions. The first one in y1 and the second one in y2. All right, then we're going to go to our table. When we go to our table, we are looking for a value of when x is equal to the same y. The only one I see that has the same y is when x equals 1. We have an 8 here and an 8 here. So since we have an 8 in both y1 and y2, the problem asks, what is the solution? Well, if you notice, all of your solutions are just in x. So the only correct one would be A. If you look at x equals 2, it's 32 and 26. So that would not be right. And if you go down to 8 or 12, they will be different. Therefore, they will not be right. You're looking for when your y's are the same. All right. It says it's an exponential function. So we know it's going to be a constant multiplier. And it says which two. One thing to remember is inputs are x and outputs are y. So 5 times what is 40? 8. 40 times 8 is 320, and 320 times 8 is 2560. So we're looking for when we multiply 8 every time. Well, the only one that I see is E. But we know we have two correct ones. So we have to simplify some things. 2 squared, well, that's 4. That's not right. 2 to the third, that's 8. So we'll hang on to that one. 3 squared is 9. That's not right. And then we just have a 4. That's not right. So it must be B and E because they both come out to be 8. All right, number 48. It's asking which statement is true. So if you notice, A, B, C, and D are kind of similar. However, they have different terms. So A and B says decrease, C and D says increase. Look at your rate. That rate is greater than 1. So if it's greater than 1, obviously we are not decreasing. Okay, so it comes from the formula of P 1 plus RT. So my R is just that 0.02. We change that to a percent, 2%, so it is C. All right, on number 49, it is very, very tricky. So it says a student saves money and decides to increase the amount of money saved by 20% each month. If the student was originally given $40, what will be the total after 4 months? So we're starting with $40, okay? And we are increasing, so that's going to be 1 plus increasing by 20%, which is going to be 2. All right, when we do that, we get 48. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the calculator. 40 times 1 plus 0.2 is 48. All right, that is the first month. Then we do it again. 48 times 1.2. That's the second month. And then we do it for the third month. And then we do it for the fourth month. All right, so we started with $40. Then we got 48. Then we got 57.6. And then we got 69.12. So really, the 82.94 would be the fifth month. But we want to know just the 4 month. When we add these 4 terms together, we get $214.72. All right, on number 50, it says a family creates a budget to begin saving for a vacation. The amount the family has can be modeled by the function f of w equals 310 plus 640w, where w is the number of weeks since the family started saving. The function g of w equals 560 plus 382w to describe the family's weekly expenses, which function represents the total savings after paying the weekly expenses. So we start with 310 plus 640 times w. And we want to know what the family saves after they paid this weekly amount. Since we want to know after, all we do is subtract these two equations. 640 minus 382 is 258. 310 minus 560 is negative 250. So the answer here would be A. All right, 51, we are looking at this chart, okay? We know to look at the x-axis because if you look here, it has all x's. So it's wanting to know from 0 to 12. It says it is only decreasing. Well, no, it's decreasing, but then it's also increasing. So that's not it. All right, then from 6 to 12, it says it's only decreasing. Well, nope, looks like it's increasing. So not B. All right, C says it's only increasing. That's not right. D says from 6 to 12 it is increasing, so D must be my correct answer. If you look here, it's decreasing, or increasing, excuse me. All right, 52. A person opens a savings account making only a one-time deposit. The expression 1,250 times 1.014 to the 2 power shows the amount of money after the account has been opened. The expression can be written in this form to show the approximate biannual interest rate. What is the approximate value of R? Well, the R value, 1 plus 0.014. The R value right now is 1.4%. If you change that to a percent, we're just paying that biannually. So we're dividing that by 2 to get 0.007. Okay. All right, last one. Stockroom has employees to unload deliveries of equal size. Employee 1 can do it in 120 minutes, and an employee 2 can do it in 180 minutes. How long will it take to do them together? Well, employee 1 can make one delivery in 120 minutes. Employee 2 can also make one delivery in 180 minutes. In order to see what they're going to do together, we add these. Since we have a calculator, let's use this to our advantage versus finding a common denominator. So 1 over 120 plus 1 over 180 equals 172. So how long will it take them? 72 minutes.